Welcome to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. And now your host, Tim Johnson.
GNO Inc. is the regional economic development organization for the 10 parishes around New Orleans. We'll visit with the president and CEO of that organization, Michael Hecht, when we return on this edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Louisiana Businesses. By partnering with your local community and technical college foundation, you're guaranteed a skilled, highly competent workforce, homegrown talent, trained specifically to meet your needs, whatever those needs are. Visit this website to learn more about how to partner with your local Louisiana Community and Technical College Foundation. To better prepare for tomorrow, become a partner today.
Protect yourself from the headaches of dealing with a non-licensed contractor. Go to lacontractor.org and make sure the person or company who wants to work for you is licensed by the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors. It's your money. Make wise decisions and protect yourself.
Growing up in Baton Rouge, I used to always pass up ExxonMobil, but I never thought that I would actually have the opportunity to get on. But what I thought was impossible turned out to be possible. So I just feel like it's just a wonderful opportunity to be able to provide for my family.
We are committed to being a community partner. We are actively working to recruit the talent here in Baton Rouge, and we want to bring them into our workforce. We're ready.
Louisiana has over 26,000 licensed companies that do business legally and meet the needs of our state. Before selecting a contractor, check references and verify the license at lacontractor.org. It's your money. Make wise decisions and protect yourself from being scammed.
For 8 seconds in the arena before an afternoon in the field. For a promise to students that honors success in the classroom. For championships earned on the bayou. For innovators committed to reclaiming our coastline. The Universities of Louisiana. For your future. For our future.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Michael Hecht, President and CEO of GNO Inc. is our guest. My friend, welcome back.
Tim, it is fantastic to be here. It's been too long.
I'm glad to have you. And there are a lot of great things going on in the greater New Orleans region, and we're going to jump into all of them. But as we start, give our audience a reminder of the mission of GNO Inc.
Thanks. So GNO Inc. is the economic development nonprofit for the 10 parishes of greater New Orleans. And our mission is to create a thriving economy and an excellent quality of life for everyone. So it's 3 parts. It's a lot of jobs and wealth, an excellent place to raise your family, and then everybody has to participate in order to maximize the economy.
That's right. That big umbrella, that inclusive economy,
That's
something
right.
we can talk about as we go along. I read something interesting on your website, so I'm going to ask you about it, maybe get you to comment on it briefly.
Can't believe everything you see on the interwebs, Tim.
So this is what it says. Michael Hecht named new honorary consul of the Republic of Finland for Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas. As they say on Saturday Night Live, what's up with that?
Yes, that is true. Well, so I am married to a Dane. I had been interested in years for potentially serving as the honorary consul to Denmark. However, the current honorary consul is firmly ensconced there and I think was recently knighted by the Queen of Denmark or something. So he's kind of well positioned. I was approached about being interested in the Finnish position. And now Finland is technically not a Scandinavian country, but it's a Nordic country. And there's a lot of kinship between Finland and Denmark and Sweden and Norway. And so I was thrilled for the opportunity. Then, of course, the awful Russian invasion of Ukraine happened, and suddenly NATO was relevant again, and suddenly Finland and Sweden are talking about joining NATO. So suddenly, this position has gone from being one where you're trying to help Finnish tourists who've gotten in trouble on Bourbon Street to actually potentially dealing in some fairly significant global politics, geopolitics, about NATO and Finland and the future of Western security. So that's it.
How about that?
That's what's up.
Well, congratulations.
What's
I guess
in your
are in
wallet?
order. We'll see how that plays out and what kind of responsibilities you have to get involved in.
I will say, and this for all the viewers. So Finland has a great background in technology.
Yeah.
Angry Birds the game was developed in Finland. But they also, I know that we have something here in Baton Rouge called Brew. We have NOE in New Orleans. The equivalent for entrepreneurs in Helsinki is called Slush, because they took the month with the worst weather of the year, which is saying something in Finland, November, and they've developed an entire package of entrepreneurship around it. So everybody's welcome to come join me in Helsinki for Slush.
Helsinki for Slush. I'm going to put it on the calendar.
Yes.
Buddy. I'll see you there. Let's talk, Michael, about the current state of the economy in the greater New Orleans region. I want to talk specifically about how you develop an economy through the headwinds that we've seen, the pandemic. You talk about hurricanes, tornadoes, this war in the Ukraine, labor issues, violence issues in the city of New Orleans. Give us a current overview of where we stand and talk about what you and your team have been doing over the last couple of years.
What's interesting about that, and this is something that I've learned now having lived through and worked through a number of disasters going back to 9/11, is that the dynamics change and there's often a lot of opportunity in it. And you have to be careful because you want to recognize and honor the suffering that's occurred, but also you want to come out of it taking advantage of the new trends. And if you look at COVID and you look at Ukraine, the two greatest dislocations that we've lived through in the past few years, both of them actually present a lot of opportunity for the New Orleans region and for Louisiana in general. And I'll go through a few examples of that. Let's start with COVID. COVID has made remote work, I think, a permanent part of our economy. And this has created an enormous opportunity for secondary and tertiary markets like Baton Rouge and New Orleans, because whereas before it was hard to compete with a New York or a San Francisco or an Atlanta that just had this critical mass of company and talent and capital, now what's happening is that people are able to work anywhere they can get a broadband connection. And so whether you are a New Orleans or you're a Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, or you're Tahiti, you can now actually attract the workers and get their tax base. So there's a whole new opportunity for New Orleans to say, you can still work for Spotify, you can still work for Twitter, but come and live in Louisiana and you can have the best of both worlds. And that's beginning to happen, and we're beginning to push that. We have a social media campaign that is being pushed out to markets like Austin and New York, saying, keep your job, upgrade your lifestyle. So that's an opportunity. Then going over to Ukraine, there are two things that I think that are particularly interesting for Louisiana. One is that one of the genesis areas of the war is the European dependence on Russian energy, oil and gas, particularly natural gas, where Europe had been getting about 50% of their natural gas from Putin. And this was done not only out of necessity, but it was a policy called Ostpolitik, where the idea was you'd have economic integration that would create stability. Well, Putin literally blew that to hell. And so this is an enormous opportunity, and I would say even security imperative for LNG facilities in places like Lake Charles and Plaquemine to provide even more of our domestic natural gas from Louisiana and from Louisiana pipelines to Germany, to the EU, in order to reduce the dependence on Russia and, frankly, to stop funding the Russian war machine. So that's a big opportunity in natural gas. And obviously in oil in general, American energy independence has just come to new prominence. The other area, which is a little bit less obvious but is probably even bigger, is we are now entering a second Cold War, unfortunately. You're seeing a bifurcation of global economies, of trade flows. And what this means is that companies are going to be now looking to come back to the West, come to safer ports, safer intermodal logistical environments. And that's also an opportunity for Louisiana to be the safe haven for company supply chains in this new second Cold War.
You mentioned it. While you have to respect the suffering that goes on through a lot of these global events that take place, they generally do create opportunities, and I know you and your team are poised to take advantage of those where you can. Let's take a break. Lots to talk about when we come back, including sort of some of the significant wins that GNO Inc. has had over the course of the last couple of years. We're visiting with Michael Hecht. He's the president and CEO of GNO Inc. You're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Shell, the rhythm of Louisiana.
As humankind faces its most critical challenges yet, the world demands leaders, and LSU is taking up the charge. The research we do here goes everywhere to protect communities threatened by climate change, so you can live your life with fewer worries about tomorrow. We're formulating a better way for everyone, because at LSU, our calling is humanity.
Plants would not be operating if they weren't operating under the regulations to keep everybody safe and keep the environment safe.
It also goes back to the end products that our raw materials go into.
Solar panels,
windmills,
reusable bottles. Primary product is acrylonitrile, which is used to make carbon fiber.
Carbon fiber in an airplane is used to make it lighter.
By reducing weight, we indirectly help the environment because it uses less fuel. And for us to make products that help reduce carbon footprint is a big deal.
Shell, the rhythm of Louisiana.
So, how can I help you today?
Maybe you're looking for a bigger home. Maybe you have plans to grow your business. Or maybe all your plans have just changed. For the better. Whether you're planning for the future or just looking for a bank that cares about you. If you have a goal, let's make it happen.
This is what you're looking for.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Michael Hecht of GNO Inc. is our guest. We talked a little bit about these headwinds that you've been up against, coming from a lot of different directions over the course of the last couple of years. What remains, Michael, as the most significant challenge in growing the economy in the greater New Orleans area?
There are three challenges, I'd say, that are top. Two of them are very practical. They're blocking and tackling challenges. The first is infrastructure, clearly. We saw during Ida that the $14 billion that we spent worked. It protected areas from surge from what was a Category 4, Category 5 hurricane. But we remain quite vulnerable to stormwater, to, I would call it death from above, to rainwater coming down. And if we had a Harvey-like event that hit Houston a few years ago, 30, 40 inches of rain over a weekend, it would be a real problem. And so we need to basically put in a new pumping system for stormwater. And there are also issues with the drinking water needs to be upgraded. That's an infrastructure issue, not to mention the potholes and the havoc that rains. The other one, of course, is public safety. This is something that, of course, has been a national issue through COVID. But it is very much an issue in New Orleans, and some of it is homicide and far too many young people dying at each other's hands. And then, of course, the street crime, the carjackings, which create a sense of unease on the street. And that is not impacted as much in terms of attraction, because I think it's something that you're seeing in all urban areas, in some places much, much worse. But when you talk to residents and businesses that are there, it's an issue. It's undeniable. And it's something that both on an ethical and on an economic basis, we have to do better. And frankly, in my opinion, the beginning of that is that we just need more police officers. It's a great police force. It's equally liked by the black and white residents of New Orleans. It's constitutional. The consent decree is about to go away. But you can't do the work of 12 or 1,300 with 900. It's just not possible.
Yeah. All that aside, Louisiana is a unique and wonderful place.
Yes.
Greater New Orleans is arguably the most unique and wonderful place in Louisiana, right? I'll tell you a quick story. So I was invited to a function at LSU with all of the LSU athletes earlier last week, and it was a networking opportunity to teach these student athletes how to begin to network in the business world. Right. And sitting at the table where I was assigned, we had a football player from Virginia. Right. We had a soccer player from Denver. We had a gymnast from New Jersey, and we had a softball player from South Carolina.
Is this a memory test?
No, but but it's not a memory test. But one of the things that I talked to them about was their experience in Louisiana.
Right.
And I was pleasantly surprised to hear all of them say, "I'll never leave now. I came here not really knowing about this culture and about this place." But each one of those individual athletes who had come here to compete at LSU said to me, I'll live the rest of my life here, likely. This place gets in your skin. It gets in your nature. It's different. New Orleans is different. You guys are doing a thing called Destination GNO. Why is Louisiana, why is New Orleans specifically in that region such a great place to do business?
It's a low-cost, high-culture place like nowhere else. And actually, the way that we sell it against, say, a San Francisco is we say that New Orleans is San Francisco at half the cost with nicer people. And it really is. But one of the challenges that we have, and this is actually the third headwind that we didn't get to, is that New Orleans is loved around the world, but it's loved for this holy trinity of food and music and culture, which are great reasons to visit or to have a destination wedding, not great reasons to locate a business or a family. And so our website, destinationgno.com, profiles over 50 neighborhoods around the region, some of which are urban, but some of which are suburban, some of which are rural and very rural, to have people understand that there's actually a range of lifestyle options around the city of New Orleans, around the 10 parishes, and then you can have a gorgeous existence, for example, on the North Shore or in a quaint city like Hammond or Covington, or live in a rural environment like the river region, or even some very exotic places out on some of the outer islands, and they're all part of Greater New Orleans, and you're still closer to the urban core than driving in from the Woodlands to downtown Houston. Sometimes I think we suffer as a city by defining ourselves in too small of a way. And the counterexample I give is Atlanta. Tim, what's the population of Atlanta?
I would guess the population of Atlanta probably exceeds the population of the state of Louisiana.
Wrong. It's about the size of Jefferson Parish. It's
really?
480,000 people. However, the people of Atlanta define themselves as a metro area that's 80% the size of Massachusetts, about 5 or 6 million people.
How about that?
And that's the difference. And so in our work with Adam Knapp in Baton Rouge and the folks in the Bayou region on our super region, we're trying to redefine ourselves politically, even emotionally, as this larger area of 1.4 is our region. Yet in Baton Rouge, it goes up to 2.1, plus the Bayou, it's close to 2.5. That's our real labor shed. That's our real cohesive unit. That's how we compete against an Atlanta or a Houston, by thinking about ourselves in a bigger, more dynamic way. And Destination GNO is meant to be the website introduction to that.
You also mentioned on your website, and we got about a minute left in this segment, something called transformative economic development.
Yes.
Talk about that.
So that is a blog that we have started. I've got to get the next chapter out on policy, and I'm basically trying to take my 20 years now in economic development and to put it onto paper, digital paper, and to explain not how to get individual wins, but how to drive systemic change that will fundamentally change an economy. And you can think about what's happened, say, to a Miami, going from the days of being Miami Vice to what it is today, this great American European hub and the center of cryptocurrency. Or even look at nation states like a Singapore or an Ireland. That's transformative economic development. That's generational change, and that's what the blog is about.
Well, let's take a break. And speaking of transformative, I want to talk when we come back from the break about a potentially transformative project that the Port of New Orleans is considering in St. Bernard Parish.
Absolutely.
We're visiting with Michael Hecht of GNO Inc. You're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Michael Hecht of GNO Inc. is our guest. Port Nola is considering what could be both important and transformative in terms of economic development in our state, and that is a new container terminal in St. Bernard Parish. Talk about the need for the project and talk about what it could mean to this economy and specifically to the people in St. Bernard Parish.
It is important. It is transformative. It's actually essential because what's happening is that the world is moving towards containerization. Total container traffic last year was about 900 million TEUs, and it continues to rise. The sad reality is that last year, the Port of Mobile passed us in Louisiana in terms of number of containers that have been shipped. They've been investing. They were able to secure a Walmart distribution center, an Amazon center. And if we do not build this new port facility that can take the largest Neo-Post-Panamax vessels, then we're going to be out of the container game. And that's why Louisiana was founded. That's why we bought a third of the country from Napoleon, plus he needed the money. And so building this facility down in St. Bernard is essential because the current facility up in Napoleon Avenue has two problems. One, it's land constrained, but the bigger one is that the bridge is too low. You can't get the bigger vessels under the bridge. So getting this built is essential. But what's interesting in terms of benefit to St. Bernard Parish, you think about the port itself, and there are going to be jobs associated with that. But the majority of the jobs and the higher paying jobs is not actually the port itself, but the port is only 400 acres out of a total 1,100. It's on the other 700, which are away from the river, where you're going to have value-added manufacturing. You're going to have distribution centers. You're going to have co-locations. And those are the facilities that are going to create the jobs that people in St. Bernard are going to enjoy and are going to send their kids to college on. So from an economic development standpoint, it could be transformative to the future of St. Bernard Parish and the region.
And I like the way you term it critically important to the future of the region. You know, these ports, obviously, this global supply chain and a lot of issues that we've seen over the years. I have maintained, you have maintained, we've had this conversation a lot over the years about what does Louisiana have to do to reach its God-given potential economically? And I know you spend a lot of time talking with your other regional partners around the state. But if you think about this whole corridor between between Baton Rouge and the mouth of the Mississippi River, and you think about the economic potential that exists there, how does this part of our state take greater advantage of what is becoming more and more a global supply chain?
To me, the answer is simple, but also historically confoundingly difficult. And that is that the 5 deepwater ports and the 30 some odd total ports of Louisiana, but particularly the 5 deepwater ports, have to start acting in concert. If New York and New Jersey can get together and have a port authority, if Seattle-Tacoma can do it, then we at least need coordination and a single master plan for our ports from Baton Rouge down to Plaquemine. Everybody has a role, but if we work together, we're going to maximize those roles. We're going to prioritize and maximize investment. And also, really importantly, we're going to be speaking to the outside world, to the major carriers, with a single voice. Right now, each port is doing its own marketing, and frankly, it's just confusing to the outside world, whereas Port of Mobile is just the Port of Mobile. So getting folks together in a coordinated way is, I think, the next step towards maximizing what I call the Lower Mississippi Complex, which is Baton Rouge, Avondale, Port of New Orleans, Port of St. Bernard, and Plaquemine, that whole stretch of river, the largest in the Western Hemisphere.
Well, I know you guys are pushing toward greater coordination and greater communication there. We'll watch to see how that plays out. You guys have had some significant wins over the last couple of years in terms of economic development, job creation in the greater New Orleans region. Talk about some of those.
Yeah, despite the crazy times, we managed still to eke out some really interesting wins, and I'll give you a selection of them. There's a gentleman named Jeff Strain, who's one of the most famous people in the video game world. He designed World of Warcraft, the largest massively multiplayer online game. He decided to open his new studio in New Orleans, Possibility Space, 75 jobs at $100,000 average salary. Related to that, we also had a number of enormous wins in the entrepreneurial space. Lucid was our first unicorn, selling for $1.1 billion to a Swedish company, actually. And now Patrick and his friends are starting a new company, which is basically Dungeons & Dragons meets Web3, which I think is going to be absolutely enormous. David Nealman, who started a new airline, Breeze, decided to make New Orleans one of his hubs, close to 300 jobs there, and 10 new routes coming out of New Orleans Airport, one of our long-term projects, which was voted in 2 surveys this year as the #1 airport, large airport in North America, which, if you remember the old airport, it's a hell of a turnaround.
It is a sparkling facility.
Yeah, and it's gorgeous. The flight to London has restarted again. We're looking now at getting into talks with Turkish Airways about potentially a flight to Istanbul or Constantinople. I can never remember which is which. They might be Giants reference. And so good things happening there. In the industrial side, we continue to see wins. We just opened a new edible oil facility over in Avondale, a Japanese company called Fuji, close to 50 jobs there at a $77,000 average salary. Interlocks continues to expand, 400 new jobs and a major investment up in Hammond in Tangipahoa, which is doing very, very well as a parish. And so it's interesting that despite all of the uncertainty of the past couple years, the inherent advantages and the cohesion we have in Louisiana, as well as the partnership with our schools, our 2- and 4-year public and private schools, means that, we continue to make real substantive progress and create jobs for our people.
We got about 25 seconds left. Your message to both the citizens in the greater New Orleans area and the business leaders in the area.
We have demonstrated in all the years since Katrina that if each of us picks an issue which is important to us and focuses on it, we can improve that particular issue and really move the needle for the entire economy and population overall. So I encourage everybody, pick your passion: early childhood education, healthcare, economic development. Focus on it, make it better, and create a better Louisiana for our kids and grandkids.
I am blessed to sit in this chair, to be able to talk to, have conversations with, and quite frankly, friendships with great leaders in our state like you, Michael Hecht. You and your team keep up the work you're doing. It's important not just for greater New Orleans, but for the entire region, and we're grateful to you.
Well, I return the thanks. It's an honor to be here with you and to have partners and friends like you in this space. You're essential partners. Thank you so much.
You bet. That's a wrap, guys. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next week at this very same time for another edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.